What's up, YouTube? What's up, Extreme Gains family? I'm Chuck. This is Extreme Gains. I am not a financial advisor. Nothing I say is or ever will be financial advice. Please do not take it as such. Today is Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, and this is the AMC, GME, and SPY Algo Exposed daily update and preparation video for tomorrow and beyond. As always, I hope you had a great day in the market today and you were able to take advantage of this crazy downside and red day and volatility again and make some extreme gains for yourselves. I'm going to go over all the regulars that I always go over here, my snake algos for all three tickers, and some macro comparatives. So with that said, let's dig in. Real quick, my extreme gains today. For my scalp ideas, I had 7 different scalp ideas and setups set up for today, and I got 12 different successful entries off trigger. Out of those 7, the highest was 135%. I had 2 100% gainers. I had a 75%, 3 50%, and a couple 35%. So those landed crazy today again. Like I said in the beginning, I hope you were able to make some extreme gains for yourselves as well. All right, let's dig into these charts. On your screen is AMC on your left, SPY on your right. The 5-minute chart for both of them today with my micro intraday snake algo on both of them. Check another box today, 4.5 weeks of the live testing period that I have been performing with these with non-stop consecutive and consistent projection and fulfillment, literally almost candle for candle every single day since I started doing it. Today on both of them, once again, was a 10 o'clock a.m. placement. There was one divergence and mirroring on AMC today. After that 10 a.m., it was this afternoon, and there was one on SPY today as well in the afternoon with 100% projection and fulfillment, literally almost candle for candle for both of them after 10 a.m. when the application happened at 10 a.m. So that is the micro intraday on both of them. Let's take a look at AMC and the intra-week snakes for AMC. AMC finished the day down a whopping 10.28% at $10.39. It's currently getting a bounce and up 1.54% in after hours at $10.55. As soon as the market opened, I told you all about this several days about this potential ascending level of support, which was actually up a little further here, and the confluence of that and the significant level of support at 1150. And if that broke, things could get real ugly here. And that is what happened today. That breach to the downside in pre-market, tried to get back up above it right before market open, and at market open it rejected hard, and the market totally flushed as soon as it opened this morning, and down we went. That is also a point of reference from last night's video that I talked about as a potential diversion and mirroring of this movement of the snake to the downside of this intra-week snake for that reason, and 2, because this has already projected and fulfilled 4 days, and Tuesday was today, which is typically when these things have interchanged in the past. So I spoke about that in last night's update and prep video. So I did have a slight expectation of divergence this morning, and that is exactly how this ended up fulfilling to the downside. I did briefly talk about this potentially mirroring. So if I mirror that intra-week snake and pull it down here, that is what it looks like has absolutely happened. Obviously, if this were to fulfill in the mirrored formation here and complete the fulfillment of this to the downside now, then you see the projection from that. However, just in its straight up version, it is a divergence from it this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and clip that tail end off of there. It's not needed for the time being to clean up my chart and put that on there as it belongs. So, as you know, I clip day prior to and day of divergence when a divergence happens. Day prior to is like this. It gives indication, projection, and fulfillment of the overlap move, this 10% move to the downside. It gives the first 3 candles of projection and fulfillment on the 1 hour, and then it invert mirrored itself here. I will clip that real quick just to entertain you and show you the mirroring, right? That's that movement that I just clipped to the downside. If I mirror it and I change its color, oh, my bad. And I bring it over here and I put it on there as such. You have the almost identical candle for candle projection and fulfillment of that, but in a mirrored way. And that is what I mean for those of you that may not understand when I say a mirrored inversion. It just means like it's a mirror. The movement has mirrored what the projection has shown. Candle for candle. So that's what it's done. Obviously, moving forward, I would expect some sort of convergence back with this if it were to continue to fulfill this in any way. And there you can see the upcoming and ongoing projection from that in this placement. I do feel okay and pretty good about this initial placement due to the fact that I can replicate that mirroring of the projection, and I have the downside overlap. It's very obvious that that would be the fulfillment of that to the downside, seeing as it is a 10+% move to the downside. So that's the day prior to. The day of divergence is today. This one does not give me the replication of the projection and fulfillment of that 10% move to the downside. Due to the time period that I clipped these, my OGs know what I mean when I say I had to wait till after the indicator to clip this snake. And that is what it looked like after I clipped it. So just overlapping it, the portion in which I believe it does, because I have a definitive price movement and structure here that I can identify the shape of according to the current clip. So clipping that, throwing it on there, that is what it looks like with its overlap projection and fulfillment and its upcoming potential projection in that position, as well as the other one. I feel pretty good about the placement of this due to that identification of that movement. If I put them both on here, you can see in a generalized perspective, they are both indicating the same overall general movement. However, the intra-snake movement is a little bit different and varies for intraday reasons, and that is something that I will be looking at to potentially be able to determine which one it is following throughout the intraday movements to give some better projection and fulfillment on a granular level. Sorry. And however, zoomed out, looking at the generalized perspective of the next movement of them, they are both indicating a grind down fashion descent down to a potential lower bottom, something similar to what we had put in as a bottom over here. That is what they are both looking like. So that is the micro intraday and the intra week for AMC. Excuse me. The macro comparatives for AMC. I had shown you a couple different ones. I have the macro comparative, the OG from the descending wedge, and the macro double prior to the January 2021 run up, which I'll show you in a second, that I had reevaluated for a secondary position due to the breach to the downside after we breached 1350, which you all know about. That's in past videos. For reference, you may want to go back and check those out. If you don't care, we're moving on. All right, this here, I took an alternate bottom from the previous bottom, and I have been looking at it in a couple different positions. This is one of them here. This is from this bottom right here, potentially replicating itself again right where we're at. There is the projection and fulfillment from it as it continues to do so. You can see moving forward in this position what it potentially projects in the future here in the short term, and then obviously throughout. This is very similar in the way that it shows some consolidation, but nonetheless, the generalized perspective of this is downside to that lower bottom potentially to get put in. This does show a little lower than what the current intra-week snake shows, but nonetheless, there you see the projection from it moving forward in the immediate and beyond. Then I had used this in a secondary position like this. And the projection and fulfillment from it was dead on today, as it showed that breach of the 1150 to the downside, back down to this 1050, and I talked about this in the video last night. Then the consolidation of the step prior to the last leg down to that eventual bottom being put in. Very, very similar to what this one would show. Obviously a little bit different from a time or a timing perspective, but nonetheless, they're both indicating that bearish downside in that manner. Then the macro comparative, the OG one of the macro double-double that I had reevaluated, it as well ended up setting up to be a potential bearish scenario coming up, and both in the short term and the midterm. And it continually fulfilled its projection here today. The indication and projection from it moving forward is a bounce back up to the upside, potentially to the 1350, if not to this what once was a potential ascending level of support, to then act as resistance somewhere in that area, and then back downside for the eventual bottom in that, before a replication of a potential move up like it had performed back in January. Putting all three of these on there to show you the different timing of those bottoms, but nonetheless, they all three show projection and fulfillment of our most recent movements and upcoming potential for a second bottom to get put in at a lower level than we are currently at right now. Both, I guess all three, indicating upcoming downside from a macro perspective. GME. The snakes for GME, the bullish snake that I talked to you about last night, intra-week, bullish intra-week, potentially invert mirroring this movement. And if it were to continue to do that, it looked like it had already started doing that. And it is. That is exactly what this is doing. It is invert mirroring this movement to the downside, candle for candle, like I showed you on AMC. I would expect a potential convergence back with this, unless this were to fulfill itself in a downside manner from where it's at now. As you see here, the projection of it, candle for candle, that would show a heavy move to the downside overall, a short-term move downside, followed by a potential and eventual bounce, and then continuation to downside if it didn't converge to the upside and continued to fulfill in that mirrored way. So that is something that I am keeping in the back of my head when looking at this potential bullish. If it does not move back up to the upside and converge back with that current position of that snake. Then the consolidative one that we have been following as well continued to project and fulfill today to this downside, like I talked about in last night's video. GME, by the way, finished the day down 7.26% at 89.15. It's currently up 0.95% and after hours at $90 even. The projection from this moving forward, if it's going to continue to fulfill this consolidation, is a move back to the upside, and it looks to be back up to the potential or back up to the resistance that we had been hitting off of multiple times here within this consolidative range and snake of fulfillment here. So moving forward, that is the projection from that prior to the eventual expiration and or diversion of that snake. Then the macro comparative for GME. There's a couple different ways that I have been looking at this. This is the position that makes the most sense to me. This one here as well. This isn't really acting as a mirrored inversion of this, but it is representing those movements in a compressed way. So it's almost as if it's a level change. Instead of getting the move to the upside to fulfill this, it actually moved short-term downside and then started fulfilling those price movements and those candles, literally almost candle for candle. So moving forward from this, one of two things. If it's going to fulfill this in this position of this level. This is something that would go kind of hand in hand with the AMC macro comparatives and the intra-week snakes to the downside, where we get a little bit of consolidation in a descending manner. We get a drop down to an eventual secondary bottom here at a lower level prior to the eventual move back up to the upside. So I'm just looking at this in multiple ways, but that is how I am currently seeing this fulfilling itself at the moment. And that is GME and what I am looking at. SPY. SPY finished the day down 0.76% at 393.89. It's up 0.5% in after hours. The current macro comparative is the red, and it is from the 0809 correction and crash. This is the replication of the crash moving forward. We have been tracking this on this channel since I started the channel in December, and it is still valid in my opinion at this point due to the fact that it's been a projected suggested path and not a candle for candle projection. So with that being said, I had talked to you about this the last few days. I just want to see an upside move to some extent and some consolidation in this round top way. Once again, it looks like an inverted mirroring of these movements to the downside down here, where it did not get the secondary move back up to the upside once it flushed out of here at the end of last week. So it is consolidating right here. I just want to see this put some sort of a round top formation in, like this is indicating, prior to that move out, and that is the only thing I use it for as a macro sense of direction in a generalized manner. And that is the macro comparator from 0809 in that position that I've been tracking. The current intra-week snake has been projecting and fulfilling for 4.5 weeks now, and the projection from it off this rejection was downside, which we got this morning, and then we got another heavy bounce for SPY this afternoon back up to the upside, and we're back up sitting on the macro descending reverse third pull that we have consistently and consecutively bounced off as rejection and off the upside as support. Excuse me. So I'm waiting to see if this is going to be another rejection and then a fulfillment of the current intra-week snake with that continuation to downside move off that rejection, or if it's going to breach that to the upside, therefore creating finally a diversion from this current intra-week snake after, like I said, 4.5 weeks of projection and fulfillment. And if it does, I will be clipping a new snake from that point on. However, that is what it looks like moving forward. It would require a rejection off of that and back to the downside if it were to continue to fulfill the intra-week snake as it stands and as it has projected and fulfilled. Then last but not least, there's what I've called the Cuckoo Kachu macro comparative. This is from crash to crash. And this is looking at the bottom of 2009 to the top of 2019. And then the placing it on the bottom of the 2020 crash. And then it eventually takes things up and runs things back up. Oh, I got it in the wrong spot. Back up to all-time highs if it were to bounce up out of here and continue to stay bullish in that manner. And what you can see here, and I explained it in previous videos as well, this macro W formation, and that is what we have formed down here, this macro W. This is a weekly clip, so it is 1 week worth of projection and fulfillment with in between every 2 candles there that it's indicating. So obviously if this were to go bull heavy to the upside with a continuation over the next few weeks, that's something that we're tracking, but I'm going to keep bringing it up just to keep it in eyesight here while we watch this price action in this crazy market. Hey, listen, that's everything I have for the video for AMC, GME, and for SPY, and what I'm looking at going into tomorrow and potentially beyond. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much. I would appreciate it if y'all did y'all's thing like you always do. Greatly appreciate it. Listen, if you're from Texas or if you know anybody from down there, my hearts go out To all the people down in Texas where there was another school shooting, my prayers, my thoughts with all the families, with all the children. God rest their souls. What an absolute terrible, terrible, terrible thing to happen again. I don't even want to elaborate on my personal feelings. Just a very terrible thing, and I'm thinking about it heavy tonight. My hearts go out to anybody that, to all of them, and if any of you that watch my content are familiar with any people from down there, my thoughts and my prayers are with all of you. God bless every one of you. I will have an update and prep video out tomorrow night, just like this one, after market close. So I hope to see you all then. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Do well tomorrow, get some extreme gains, and I will talk to you all tomorrow night. Later.